All right, here's my annotations for the Absolute True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. Scott Curtis speaking. I did some different notations here. I started out with post-it notes, and then I got into some highlighting later in the book here. So, Junior has a stutter, lisp, isolates himself in his room. Dad kills a dog due to illness and poverty, no money for the veterinarian. That seemed like a major theme or a traumatic event for Junior. Friend Rowdy is physically abused by both parents. Or no, he's physically abused and both parents are alcoholics and mean. I thought it was interesting when it talked about how Rowdy and Junior talked about each other's dreams and only with each other. That seemed like a very close relationship, that they would talk about that with each other. There seems to be a little bit of an anti-challenging God Christian theme in the book. Masturbation, sex, which is normal. I don't think it's a bad thing. It's an interesting perspective. He and Rowdy became enemies after he chose to go to the white school in Reardon, which was unfortunate that his friend would not be supportive of him. One of the biggest events in the entire book, I believe, was page 65, where Junior, who called himself Arnold at the new school, stood up for himself and actually fought off a bully by punching him in the face. That was a huge threshold moment for him, turning into more of a man that would stand up for himself. Let's see here. Well, Arnold being respected by people at his new school because he stood up for himself. Boys are like packs of wild dogs. The fact that he punched the kid in the nose made the rest of the kids, the boys, respect him. That was pretty interesting, like an initiation of sorts. Gordy was a huge impact on Arnold because he helped him critically think and taught him how to study. I thought that was excellent. One thing that I thought was pretty interesting is where he faked sick in order to avoid things. I would have stayed home with an imaginary illness, is what he said. That reminds me of something I read in Carl Jung, where he admitted when he was a child he would fake illness in order to miss school or uncomfortable things in his life. It's a very common tactic of avoidance. Some people even make themselves sick on purpose rather than faking it in order to have a real illness. I think that would be a Munchausen. Penelope finds out Junior is poor and likes him anyway. That was a very big thing for, well, I guess he was called Arnold at that point, not Junior. I liked on page 136, I believe, you have to dream big to get big. That's thinking positive and thinking big. The higher you aim, the higher you end up hitting. 138, negative is more contagious than positive. That's what I wrote. It says since quitting is contagious in the text. So, yeah, people see one another being negative and quit, it tends to spread. And unfortunately, the negative probably spreads more easily than the positive. That's why I try to stay as positive as I can. I've learned the worst thing a parent can do is ignore their children. I agree with that 100%. One of the other things a parent can do is not only ignore them, but be negative and toxic towards their children. That can sometimes be worse than just ignoring them. Grandma was killed by a drunk driver. She forgave him. That was a huge positive and uplifting event in the book. They expected me to be good, and so I became good. That was fantastic. I enjoyed that. I didn't put an asterisk on it, but I will now. Essentially, low expectations they feel good temporarily to people, but I do think that it gives people a place to hide and not push themselves. So, with all the positive support a person can handle, I think they should be encouraged to push as hard and as long as they're able. This was a good thing on 189 I saw. My dad may not have loved me perfectly, but he loved me as well as he could. That was him accepting his dad, despite his obvious faults of being an alcoholic. It reminded me of a phrase that I've heard that says, first we idealize our parents, then we demonize them, and hopefully if we grow enough, we actually begin to humanize them and understand them for their faults and not hold it against them. That's something I'm working on in my own personal life. All of Reardon's seniors were going to college. None of the Wellpoint Indians were Native Americans. That is a drastic contrast in educational preparedness. The system wanted Indians on the reservation to go away and die by isolating them out there. This was interesting on 217. I know I'm past the 5-minute mark, but leaving the res, when he left it in order to be healthy and get an education and separate himself from the destruction on the reservation, I thought it was interesting because any person can do that in their own life by separating themselves from negative pathologies in their own nuclear family. So it's a very good thing to have that in the book in case there are people reading it who need to take action like that in their own life, regardless of the book. It was interesting on 229. You looked happy and I was happy for you. I believe that's when Rowdy started to warm up to Arnold again. And then the coup de grace, as I would say, on the final page, he and Rowdy made up and they played basketball. But rather than being competitive and trying to beat each other, they didn't keep score, which I thought was excellent because they were enjoying each other's company and friendship and closeness again. And they didn't have to be mean or compete. They actually just wanted to be around each other and be close, which I thought was kind of a nice thing. So thank you for your attention. I hope I did all right with it.